Chapter 10. August lifted the virtual reality helmet off his head. "Your turn," he said, handing it to Kayla. "All right," she agreed. "What's going to happen when I turn it on?" He turned a dial and set it to take you to the next resistance frequency we can pick up. They change depending upon who's sending, but basically, you should have the sensation that you're inside a resistance website. "Where did you just go?" Ezekiel asked August. "I was attending a meeting for resistors in Canada. They were all talking French, and I had no idea what they were saying," he laughed. "It was just kind of final level anyways. They were all so excited." Kayla glanced at Mufumbi for reassurance, and her eyes met him as if she should try it, and he nodded. She placed the helmet on her head. August told her that what buttons to press, and soon the helmet was humming on her head. The vibration ran down along behind her ears and traveled through her jaw, and she shut her eyes as the sensation continued down the back of her neck. Lights filled the darkness behind her eyes and formed blobs that crossed and blended into new colors. Sometimes they separated and reminded her of the films she'd seen in science depicting cell division. She began trembling as the vibration from the helmet overtook her whole body. Then somehow, she was on a rock outcropping on a mountain. Below stretched a mountain range so vast and far-reaching that it seemed to go on forever until it faded into ethereal blue. Somehow she'd lost the helmet. To her right, a woman with long black hair sat beside a small fire. She wore a cowboy hat that boasted a wide band of gorgeous feathers, as well as jeans and a heavy woolen poncho. She held a bundle of grasses and herbs that she waved over the fire, sending out plumes of white smoke and pleasing herbal smell. With eyes tightly shut, she chanted a wild, poignant call that seemed to emanate from the center of her being. Kayla stepped closer. The sound of her footfall on the gravel-strewn rock caused the woman to slowly open her eyes. She fixed on Kayla, but betrayed no emotion. Kayla felt awkward under the scrutiny of such an unwavering gaze, but only a little. A large part of her was so fascinated with this situation and this person to be overly self-conscious. The woman beckoned, and Kayla sat across the fire from her. "I felt you calling me, so I called to you," the woman said in a smooth, deep voice. "I called you?" Kayla questioned. What was she talking about? She didn't even know who this was. "My name is Uatona. You want to know about the soul." Kayla breathed in sharply. "How do you know that?" she asked. "We are all part of the same dream. Those who know how to listen can hear," Uatona replied. "The soul is the original being that the being before it entered the earthly plane, and what it will be again when the earthly plane is done with." Kayla felt as if she were in a dream. It was the same as a dream where something made no sense yet seemed perfectly logical at the same time. "How do you know it's there?" she asked. "The soul, I mean. There's no proof it even exists." "You are your soul. There is no it other than you." "Where am I?" "Remember this place," Uatona said. "Imprint it in your mind's eye so that your eternal guide will enable you to find it again when you need to. Remember the white face." Getting up, she walked off down a dirt trail until she disappeared into a pine forest. The icy wind blew up the back of Kayla's shirt and she shivered again. The wind blew so hard and cold that she squeezed her eyes shut and was back in the warehouse, the helmet on her head. "Where did I go?" she asked, lifting it from her head. "I met an amazing woman. I was in the mountains somewhere." August took the helmet from her and examined its readout. Mufumbi looked at him. "I never saw those numbers before," August said. "What numbers?" Kayla asked. "The numbers on the helmet tell what virtual reality site you've been at. It looks like you traveled to the Adirondack Mountains. A lot of resistance groups live around there," Ezekiel told her. "The Adirondacks?" Kayla remembered that her father had maps of the Adirondacks at the time he died. Her mom had thought he was planning a vacation. "Why would resistors go to the Adirondacks?" she asked. "It's easy to hide up in the mountains," Mufumbi explained, "and they're close to Canada if things really went bad. You could get into Canada inside a day. Canada doesn't have the barcode yet." "Yeah, but these numbers are new. It's a site we've never been to before," August said. He looked at Kayla. "What exactly did you see?" She described the location and the woman. "I've heard about Uatona. She's a Cherokee shaman and a barcode resistor," Allison said. "She was putting out articles warning against the barcode when the thing was still in Asia. There's a mystical angle to everything she writes. The article I read was about how you can resist the barcode with your mind." "How do you do that?" Nedra asked, clearly skeptical. "Well, according to Uatona, We all have undeveloped telepathic and telekinetic powers, Allison said. She claims we all can learn to access those abilities. So what are we supposed to do, float the barcodes off everyone's wrists with our brainwaves, Nedra scoffed. Allison stayed cool. She says the power of our minds is so powerful it's atomic, and it's true. We're atoms. That's what we're made of. Kayla closed her eyes and imagined Gene Drake deflecting the guard's bullets with the power of his mind. If only he'd been able to. Then maybe he would have closed down the post office, and they would have brought in reporters. Then he'd have told the whole world what he knew about the barcode. That's just nuts, Nedra spat out the words. I don't believe you even saw that, Kayla. You probably just read an article and dreamed up the whole thing to get attention. That's not true. She was real, Kayla insisted. She told me to remember the white face. Does that mean anything to any of you? They glanced one to the other, and they shook their heads. No, said August, but maybe we should remember it just in case we need to know it later on. That's crazy. She didn't see anybody, Nedra insisted. How do you know Kayla didn't meet her? Mufumbi argued with Nedra. The Adirondacks is Resistance Central. Some of those groups are nutty, walking around the woods with machine guns or trying to contact passing spaceships, but it's the center of everything. If you need to know something about the barcode resistance, eventually you have to touch back in the Adirondacks. You know, August said, now that you mention the Adirondacks, I wanted to talk to you guys about something. I mean, I don't want to talk about it, but I hope it does, because I hope it doesn't happen. But I think we have to, he breathed deeply, as if to steady his nerves. What if this all starts to go down badly? It could, you know. What do you mean, Ezekiel asked. Say Dave Young can't make a difference, and Global One, or the government, or whoever, starts coming for resistors, August said. I don't think that'll happen, Allison replied. Okay, I hope you're right, but if it does, I think we should have a plan, August said. Someone to contact, or someplace to meet. What about the Adirondacks? Mufumbi suggested. It would be a good place. We could follow the superlink straight up, and eventually you'd run into other people who would be sympathetic to you. It wouldn't be too hard to find help. If it's so easy, then Global One could find you too, Nedra pointed out. The Adirondacks are huge, Ezekiel said. They wouldn't find you that easy, but for the same reason, we'd never find each other. We'd have to have a specific spot. Kayla thought about the place where she'd just been. Utona had said she needed to find it. Would she someday meet this group there? Was her future already intertwined with theirs? I'll get some maps, August volunteered, and then we can pick a place to meet. August, Allison said abruptly, is there any more space available in the zine? He opened his zine files and checked. I could probably piece together a column or so. Why? When I was using the helmet, I got into a San Francisco website where they were discussing Tattoo Gen, she said. I've heard of that, Mufumbi said. What did they say about it? What is it? Kayla asked. It's a gung-ho youth group funded by Global One. Allison explained. They're very into barcodes, a tattoo pride kind of thing. It's sick, Ezekiel said. It might be sick, but it's real. The San Francisco group was saying they're very open in the Bay Area, Allison reported. They wear these barcode t-shirts and highlight their tattoos in fluorescent colors. Lately, gangs of them have been wearing a red jumpsuit uniform and beating up anybody who's not coded. Is anyone doing anything to stop them? Mufumbi asked. If they are, I haven't heard about it. They said it here in the East, Tattoo Gen is much more undercover. They have a mission to seduce kids into getting the barcode. If they see someone who's undecided, they befriend them and try to talk the person into it. That's so low, Kayla said. Allison nodded. I'd like to write an article in the zine, exposing the group. No one will believe you, Nedra argued. I'm not sure if I even believe you. I've never seen one of them. Allison sighed, exasperated. That's the point, Nedra. You're not supposed to see them. They're undercover, at least on the East Coast. I don't believe it, Nedra insisted. I can give you the space if you want it, August told Allison. I want it. Allison agreed as she placed the helmet back into the case. Ezekiel stood. I've got to get home. If I don't write that report for science, I'm not graduating. Me too, Mufumbi agreed, folding his chair. The glowing light from the bare bulb guided them out of the warehouse until August shut it off with a remote clicker from the door. Mufumbi locked the heavy door and afterward showed Kayla the metal key. Can you believe people depended on these once, he said. This door is one of the last of its kind. It's so primitive. Kayla studied the key he handed to her. Where did you get this? My dad owns this warehouse, he told her. He inherited it from his father. I think he's forgotten all about it. I just took the key from his desk one day when I was a kid, and I've been coming down here ever since. The group walked past the clubs. Nedra headed for a sleek silver sports car. You coming, Zeke? She asked. Ezekiel looked trapped, shifting foot to foot. Yeah, sure, he said, with a quick wave to Kayla. Nedra tossed a triumphant glance at Kayla before slipping into the car. Behind her, August and Allison got into August's beat-up 2010 magenta Honda, one of the first of its kind ever made. I can drop you off, Mufumbi offered. Thanks, but I'll walk. I don't live far. She wanted to walk along the river and think about everything, to brood over Ezekiel jumping into the car with Nedra after all. How could she have totally misread the situation? You sure? Mufumbi checked. She nodded. Yeah, thanks. He was nice, real nice, and she suddenly had the feeling that he might be interested in her. Probably had been for a while now. He was attractive, too, with those striking light eyes against his dark skin. But it was Ezekiel who made her heart race, who had gotten into her head. All she wanted now was time alone to replay the evening they'd spent together. She walked towards the river. The nuclear power plant lit her path for a long time, until its glare faded and gave way to the softer light of the full moon. As she went to relive the jolt of energy she felt as she turned her palm over, checking for the barcode. She went over everything, the vulnerable expression on his face when he talked about his family, the adrenaline-charged half-second when she'd turned and seen he was the one who had been following her, his calm command when he'd insisted she be allowed to stay at the meeting. But the bullet bus took nearly a half hour to come to its stop at the Global Track station. By the time it let her off, she had been away from home for a long time, and she had thought it had only been hours. So much had happened. As she neared her house, she saw a figure by the halogen lamp post in front. The intense glow of the white light made him easy to see. She hurried toward Ezekiel, knowing exactly why he'd come. For her. He'd come for her. He saw her running and walked quickly towards her, and when they met, he held her and kissed her hard. News article. New phenomenon of self-immortalization puzzles psychiatrists. Baltimore, Maryland, May 15th, 2025. A team of psychiatrists at Johns Hopkins Medical Center held a press conference today describing a bizarre new medical phenomenon they dubbed tattoo manic psychosis. Dr. Herbert Carver, head of the team, described this mania in which a person becomes convinced that the barcode tattoo will somehow do him or her harm. This creates a state of deep disturbance within the person. The first stage of TMP, or tattoo manic psychosis, is often manifested in self-destructive behavior such as alcohol or drug abuse. At stage 2, the person becomes desperate to have the barcode removed at any cost, despite the fact that the barcode tattoo removal was outlawed in the same 2024 bill in which tattooing for decorative purposes was also outlawed. The patient can become so desperate to have the barcode removed that he or she reports to an attempt to burn the barcode from his or her own skin. This has resulted in many catastrophic burns, Dr. Carver told the press. In the last 6 months, we have treated nearly 200 people for self-inflicted immolation. Here's another article, or an email from May 17th, 2025 to artgirl@globalnet.planet from AT, cybercafe1700 at globalnet.planet. Hey, Kayla. I finally got to a cyber cafe in Carson City. I'm here with my cousin Emily to buy stuff. She and I are the only ones who can actually make a purchase since we have working barcodes. I feel like a secret agent since I have 2 secret missions. My first mission is to sneak away and email you. Emily doesn't even have a computer. A few months ago, she decided the CIA was spying on her through her computer, so she smashed it with an axe. Yes, that's right. My cousin Emily is a full-blown mental case. You can imagine what a joy it is to live with her and to be dependent on her for everything. Actually, my code can still buy some things as long as my parents keep my account up. They do this by trading in all their stuff. My dad got lots of credits for giving a car dealer his Jag, although he says the guy ripped him off big time because he knew we were stuck. My code seems to only go so far, though. We had tried to apply for a loan for me, and it crashed out. It seems like I have the family bum code, too. It just hasn't caught up with me yet. I can still get gum and milk and antiperspirant and stuff like that, thank God. As long as they still take it at the gas tanks, we're not totally banged out. My other mission is to buy my mom hair dye. Emily doesn't believe in hair dye. She says people are meant to age naturally, so she wouldn't buy any for Mom. I know it's dumb, but my mom is completely